Welcome back to another happy edition of the Wolverine.com post-game podcast with Doug Skene, Michigan's former All Big Ten offensive lineman. Skene, man, the hateful Doug Skene, I might add. That was the new
Oh,
prediction.
come on now. Come on, man. How many times do I have to say I love being wrong?
I know, but there was one guy on our board that said your 5-7 prediction was hateful and spiteful. And then, like, look, you don't know this guy, okay? He's not that way. And he's like, well, I'll take your word for it, but I disagree. But such is the nature of social media. I got to tell you, man, it's pretty clear now that you're going to be losing the staff picks overall when it comes
Yes.
to, and I mean, your 5-7 prediction won't hold water. They're going to beat Northwestern. They're probably going to beat Indiana. They're going to beat Maryland. So really, the floor looks to be eight wins for this team, which is fantastic. A step in the right direction. But now it's about winning some more of those road games. And before the week started, Skene, I said Wisconsin might be the tougher of those two. Nebraska is improving. And to me, that's going to be a big test. But you can't discount what they did at Wisconsin. I don't give a damn about what happened to Graham Mertz in the second half. They ran through that line. They dominated the lines of scrimmage. They turned the tables on these guys and made up for two past years. Didn't make up for it, but they atoned in a way for the two past years of disappointments.
So coming into this season, Balas, indeed, I did say 5-7 based on what I'd seen in the last few years and all the indicators and the direction of the program. And I also said, God, I hope I'm wrong. And here we are, 5-0, and I'm happy. I'm the happiest former player who thought they were going to be average at best to be absolutely wrong. And watching that game against Wisconsin was really, really gratifying. I was clapping my hands, making some noise, and people sitting there with me were looking at me like, man, what is going on with you? You usually don't get this excited. I was so happy for the players making those plays and having, like Balas, the body language and the fun that you could tell that they were having as they were dismantling Wisconsin, like they're lifting that gorilla off their shoulders of a road victory in a tough environment as an underdog. And I really, really enjoyed it. I'm really happy that I was wrong. And they did indeed do that. They took the life out of that Wisconsin team, and they gave them a little breather, a little air before the half, which I wasn't happy with. But then they just absolutely bone crushed them, and it was really, really fun to watch. And I enjoyed every moment of that football game.
We were in the post game press room, and it's right next to adjacent to the locker room, the Michigan locker room, and the guys hooting and hollering. It's great to be a Michigan Wolverine, singing the fight song. It is really cool to be there, and it really reminded me of the Lloyd Carr days in a lot of ways. The pride that those guys were taking in the fight song, the love they had for one another, same as when you played. And I'm not going to say that there were teams that didn't have that in the past 15, 17 years, but this team seems pretty damn wired and together. So I loved it. It was a lot of fun. I will say that, and people are getting mad about this too. That Wisconsin offensive line. Spoke to people earlier in the week who said, "Man, this is atypical of past Wisconsin teams. That be prepared for what you see because it's not the same." And it was clear these guys don't move very well up front. But it's more than that. These guys weren't getting any movement, no push, despite how big they were. They just aren't good enough at this point. That is not to take anything away of what Michigan accomplished, because to me, one of the big question marks going in was how is this interior defensive line going to hold up against this Wisconsin line? To me, that was one of the keys to this game, and boy, did they do a fantastic job.
No doubt. So the Michigan coaching staff, all the way up to the head coach, deserves a lot of credit for the way that team performed. But it is true, Ballas. I know people that watch every Wisconsin game very closely, and these people, they know football. And I was talking to this contact of mine before, and I said, "What do you tell me about Wisconsin?" He said, "Defensively, these guys are studs. That defensive front is the real deal." And they got some nice players on that side of the football. He said offensively, they're struggling to find their identity. And he said, we're just honestly not very good offensively. And the quarterback gets hit early and he gets rattled and he turns the ball over. And that's exactly what happened Saturday. Now, that being as it is, I would like to clarify for the record, all credit goes to Michigan for that victory. They went up there, performed, and did exactly what they wanted to do and dismantled and made that Wisconsin offensive line look silly at times. The way that Hutch and Adabo were coming off the edges and the interior blitzes running free, and Ross, the linebacker, standing in the backfield, almost taking the handoff on that one play. Just on this defense, we've been talking about it building its momentum here. And the thing, again, I keep saying this, these guys are having fun while they do it. You can see them communicating. They celebrate. They're having a good time out there. They're comfortable in what they're doing, and they look confident. So that defensively, watching them get after Wisconsin and do to them what they did to us the last couple of years was really, really gratifying. And on the other side of the ball, the Michigan offensive line, yeah, they just passed a test in my mind. They really did. That defensive front, starting with their interior nose guard, those are really good players. And several of those dudes are going to be playing football in the NFL at some point, especially that nose guard. He's a young guy, but he's good. I thought we did really nice up there handling those dudes. We ended up rushing for over 100 yards, which is 40, 45 yards more than Wisconsin's average. That's the number one rushing defense in the country. And I really like McNamara making some plays. They weren't always the downfield big bombs, although we had a few of those as well. But a couple moments where we thought, oh, my God, he's going to take a sack. He slithered out of there and got rid of the football. And a couple of those passes were outstanding. So thumbs up, Balas. I feel really good. Now, I must clarify, I was at Meijer today, and I did not buy any blue Kool-Aid, and I'm not going to. But I did have a smile on my face when people said, hey, what'd you think of that game? So, yeah, really good.
Yep, 23, by the way, is the average yards on the ground per game for Wisconsin that they were allowing. So it was actually about 90 more.
Oh,
And
good grief. I thought it was 60-something. Sorry
no,
about that.
23, that's okay. Number one in the country. And of course, sack yard, I just figured into that too. But
Yeah.
that brings up another point. The pass protection I thought was pretty good. I liked how they moved the pocket for Cade McNamara a little bit. And I was going to ask you, I mean, the backs averaged about 3 yards per carry. When it came to the running game, I gave him a C in the post game, and I was thinking maybe it should be a C plus. And now you got to remember, I'm grading based on what we expect from Michigan, right? And these guys, it's not about the opponent; it's about what you do. Their long run was 8 yards. They didn't break off any big ones. There were a couple times it looked like they were going to slither through there and break off a big one, but they didn't. So when your backs average 3 yards a carry between them, I thought that's okay. But when you look at the opponent, to me, I thought that was a pretty solid job on the ground. Not great, but solid.
Yeah, I would agree with you. But again, that defensive front for Wisconsin can stop the run. Three yards on the ground is not the worst thing. I'll take it. Obviously, the one thing I did notice in the game, of course, I didn't have the sky cam view the whole time, and I'm certainly not carrying the ball myself. But at times, Balas, we were getting significant push out of our guards and tackles. And it looked like Corum on a few plays cut the thing backside instead of keeping the ball front side, where what I mean by front side is where the play is intended to go, right? For anybody wondering what I mean by that. And it looked like he did a jump cut and went backside where there was nobody for an edge defender on the backside. And it's like, man, keep that ball front side. We're getting movement up there, and you might have gotten 3 to 5 yards instead of the 2 that you got. And so, that was just me getting greedy as that game went on. I was looking for things to get better at because I saw some really good blocking out of our 2 tackles and both guards. And, of course, Vastardis did a nice job in there against that center or that nose guard as well. So I was getting a little greedy, Balas, starting to nitpick a little bit. Of course, we're always looking to get better. It's still the first half of this part of the season. So, as that game wore on and it was getting out of hand, it was clear we were going to win. I'm starting to think, okay, this line versus the Nebraska defensive front that I watched play Michigan State a week ago. This line versus Ohio State. This line versus Penn State. So, of course, I'm getting greedy and I'm looking for where we can get better.
Yeah, as you should, and that's pretty much the goal, right? Get better every week. So one thing I was going to tell you, find some of those plays and we'll break them down for our In the Trenches podcast here, video podcast later in the week. So I'd like to see some examples of that. A couple other things. John Jansen was talking, former Michigan All-American offensive lineman, and he was saying after the game, I really thought that they could exploit the edges a little bit more and maybe run some sweeps with Blake Corum. That's something we haven't seen a whole lot of. Your thoughts on that? And I understand they're trying to avoid the negative plays, and we saw one of those down near the goal line when they inexplicably, that's a tough word to say.
A toss sweep that didn't go well.
Yes, to Hassan Haskins instead of Blake Corum. If you're going to run that, man, run it with your speedy guy, right?
Yeah, run it with your speedy guy. But that thing, either Hayes, either they had a defender that was unaccounted for, or Hayes went MA. And I'm not going to say he went MA because it's way too early. I haven't watched it, but we ran a toss sweep, and there were 3 defenders where they only had 2 blockers. So something was wrong on that side, but that was ugly. But John's right, and John knows his football, obviously. Michigan has made its living between the tackles with their down blocking and some of their power football. And there was a lot of that Saturday against Wisconsin for sure. But at some point, somebody's going to force the issue and just make you run outside. So I think it's there. We saw some of the plays in the previous few games where you're bringing a couple guys down, you're pulling a guard, center, and or tackle out to the edge. And so they could have done that. And obviously it wasn't heavy in the playbook. But again, that Wisconsin defense, man, they know how to defend that run, whether it's inside or out. And just like old Jerry Hanley used to say, running sideways is not always the best. Go right at them. If you have success going at them, then keep going at them. And we grinded out for over 100 yards, and it was certainly well enough to win.
Yeah, and it was a 3 yards and a cloud of dust type of game. But I will say this: I like the game plan. I like the way they came out firing. We'd heard earlier in the week, hey, they're going to be working on a lot of gimmick plays, gadget plays, and I'm thinking, don't go to that well too often. Do what works, but pick your spots. I thought the flea flicker was perfect with Hassan Haskins. They really sucked it up. It was a great ball, by the way. Everybody's like, oh, that's an easy throw. That's not an easy throw. He had a couple steps, but it still had to be right on the money. It was. He was behind his receivers a couple of times. I didn't think his receivers did him any favors. And to me, you get two hands on the ball, especially in those situations. The first play of the game, Dalen Baldwin, I think there were some nerves there, but they had an opportunity, in my opinion, to really set the tone and missed out on what I thought were some really good play calls, especially with the play action and stuff like that early in the game.
Yeah, there was definitely some first quarter jitters there, I think, out of McNamara, because some of those passes were behind the backside, back armpit, back shoulder, where they shouldn't have been, and that's not unusual, right? But some he made up for it. There was a 1/3 down play where they rolled the pocket left and hit Roman Wilson, and on the run, that was an outstanding pass, right on the money. And then a couple other plays down the field, and then the deep ball and the flea flicker was just beautiful. The wheel route to Edwards there, which got broken up by the defender late, that was almost a touchdown right there. That one might have been a touch underthrown. But I've seen enough out of McNamara to say, yeah, this kid can make the throws, and as he gets more comfortable and gets more reps doing it in games, I believe he's going to get better at it, because I've seen him get better so far through 5 games.
Yeah, and he was late on that throw to Edwards too, if we're being honest. And I didn't see it get tipped. I couldn't tell if he just dropped it or if it got tipped. What did the TV copy show?
The defender got his hand in there, may have got a piece of the ball, but certainly he timed it well, and
Okay.
and Edwards got his arm, so it wasn't. It looked like just a drop.
Yeah.
But that was not the case. The defender made a good play there at the last second.
Yeah, and it did hit him in the hand still. Regardless, yeah, when it gets tipped like that, all bets are off. And it was late. He was open for a long time, and we could see it up in the press box. Man, he's got a couple guys to choose from. Get it out there. He held it too long, but not going to complain because he completed, I think, 16 of 28 passes. I think it was actually maybe, yeah, something like that. It could have been 20. Let's put it this way. It could have been, and probably should have been 21 of 28, which would be 75%, if I'm not mistaken. Is my math right there? 3/4. So, and I thought he was fantastic for a lot of that game. Now, was he perfect? No. And you still have people saying, "Hey, look at what JJ McCarthy did on the long ball to Dalen Baldwin. He's going to get his time. He's going to get his chance here, guys." But I got to tell you, the way they worked him in, that 1-2 punch looks pretty solid to me. McNamara didn't panic. That was not, by the way, Skene, a very intimidating crowd. They were a late arriving crowd. Michigan kind of took them out of the game early and jumping out to a lead, which was pretty important. But quarterback play seems to me to be one of the least of the concerns of this team at this point.
Yeah, if you look for weaknesses on either side of the ball, there's nothing that glaring that makes you wonder and really freak out and just say, "Oh man, we're screwed there." I don't see any spots at all, and we've seen some playmaking out of all these guys. And I will say, I'm not a fan of rotating quarterbacks. I never have been. It's not
Right.
just this team, and I don't care what team it is. I'm not a fan of it. But McCarthy's deep ball there was absolutely cash money beautiful. That was a sweet throw by that kid. And so that means, okay, you can clearly do it. So someday I'm going to watch you do a lot more of this. And who knows? It could be this year, later, who knows? Next year for sure, and into the future. So that's good. But I also believe that McNamara is the guy. He's the one who's earned this job. He's the one who's running this offense. And so I don't know what the coaching staff's plans are, obviously, for what their strategy is there with these two guys working them in. And listen, it's, getting a guy some reps there's nothing wrong with that. But I didn't understand down on the goal line, first and second down handoff, and then you bring in Cade for the pass attempt. It's kind of obvious what you're doing there, but maybe it's all set up. Again, I'm not on the coaching staff, but I'm just saying officially, I'm on the record. I'm not a fan. I like consistency in that huddle. I like the vibe that your leader brings on a regular basis, and you bring in a quarterback just from experience and telling you it's just different. It's just different when somebody else is running things back there. Not that it's bad, it's just different. And I like consistency as an offensive lineman.
I want to go back to Corum for a second. And ESPN analyst Kirk Herbstreit said a few weeks ago, he said, man, these are the best backs I've seen at Michigan since Mike Hart. And they finally look like they have some elite playmakers there. And I'm thinking, pump the brakes just a little because I want to see what happens when they play against the bigger, stronger lines in the Big Ten that they're going to face. Corum is not a big guy. Your thoughts on him in the Big Ten? Have we seen enough to say, hey, Hassan Haskins might actually be the bell cow running back here, and his core too small?
I don't believe that at all, Balas. That Wisconsin front, again, credit to them. That's a violent, big defensive front. They run a 3-4. You got a big, strong, wide dude at the nose. Their defensive tackles are big, and their inside linebackers are heavy dudes that can bring the wood. There was a play, and I can't remember what it was, and Corum went out afterwards, and I wonder if he got his bell rung a little bit. That dude came up, made a cut, and squared up with one of their linebackers, and it was one of the more violent collisions I've seen in Michigan season so far, and I thought, he might be out. He was back in there. I'm telling you, that kid is tough as nails. I've seen enough to know that dude is a football player, right? We talk about the difference between great athletes that happen to play football and stud football players that are also great athletes. I think Corum falls into the second category there. I don't know that Haskins obviously brings a different element to his game, but I don't question the durability or toughness of Blake Corum at this point. I think Haskins complements that, but obviously Corum has the breakaway element and the little scat back, little quickness more than what Hassan brings. But they complement each other well, and I think they're both tough as nails.
Yeah, I can't wait to see him as we go forward here. And Nebraska's a big test. And I'm going to say this. I said before the game, like I said, I thought Wisconsin might be the tougher of the two tests. Nebraska's looking better and better. They're improving. Their defensive line, I don't know if you saw them against Michigan State. They dominated the second half of that game. They played toe-to-toe with Oklahoma, who is not the Oklahoma of the past, but still, that's a good football team. And Northwestern, boy, they're a dumpster fire this year, but they did what you're supposed to do against a dumpster fire, and they crushed them. So, yes, to me, in that environment at night, playing a top 10 team, that is the only game in town there, Skene. I don't know how familiar you are with Nebraska. I know you never played there. That crowd is crazy. So to me, I think that's at least as big a test. I think Michigan opened as a 1 or 2 point favorite. It's up to 3 now. That's at least as big a test up there as the one that we saw this past Saturday.
I don't have any doubts. Nebraska is under Scott Frost is trying to establish their identity. And how many years has Frost been there now, Balas? What, three or four now?
Yep.
And they're still not where they want to be. This is an opportunity for that program to take a step forward in the direction that they've wanted to be and be at that they haven't found yet. And there's no doubt this will be a hornet's nest. I can remember years back we went out there with Denard Robinson, and that was a hornet's nest night game, and that didn't end well for us. This will be a challenge. And I think for this Michigan football team, again, in the last couple seasons where things have kind of faltered late in the season, I just feel like watching these guys, especially the Wisconsin game, they have the momentum. They're building something. And I'm starting to think that this team is absolutely different. I can see that they're different. And I think that's a really, really good thing for the young men on this team. It's a lot of fun to watch, but I don't have any doubt about the challenge that Nebraska is going to bring. And that will be a difficult environment. It ain't going to be a late arriving crowd, I can tell you that, because it ain't starting at noon, right? It's a night game.
Yep.
They'll be all sauced up, and it might just be warm down there in Nebraska. I don't know. But it's going to be a tough game, and it'll be, I don't care if they win by 1 point. I really don't. Just win the football game. And I got a feeling, Balas, that I will be picking them to win this week.
Well, there's the kiss of death, isn't it? With how it didn't been at staff picks. Of course, we were all wrong, with the exception of Doug Karsh, who let us hear about it immediately after the game. So that hey, 19-13 he picked, and I don't think anybody saw that kind of a win coming, and it was a beautiful thing. And there's nothing. Everybody's saying, "Oh, you're trying to discount them by saying that Wisconsin isn't as good." No, not in the least. That is a tough football team, and what Michigan did up there, having never won as an underdog in the Jim Harbaugh era. Is that crazy? Heading into
Yeah.
year 7. So, hey, you get the win, you move on. Now you got a big test. If you sweep these 2 games, Skene, then you're starting to talk about bigger goals here. And
Yes.
you're going to have an opportunity here because you got Northwestern coming up next at home. You're going to have an opportunity. You'll be 7-0 probably going into East Lansing. And then you're talking about bigger goals. And I'm not talking about, I'm with you. I'm not drinking the blue Kool-Aid yet, not talking about championships, but you're at least in the discussion heading into November. And that's pretty damn exciting.
There's no doubt, because coming into the season, we thought, okay, the direction of the program and some of these bigger games, bigger road games, underdog games was not good. And so every time this team rattles off a victory like they just did yesterday, you start to build expectations. And I think that for us as fans, it's a fair thing to start building expectations, because you can see it with the players. And you listen to the captains talk, and they're talking about things. And I think they've got something special going here. And I don't have any doubts that they understand what's ahead of them. I heard, Coach Harbaugh saying they ain't taken any bows yet. And there's no one congratulating anybody on any. There's no championship ring sizing going on just yet. They don't have the ring guys showing up to measure everybody's finger for the Big Ten title ring, as they should not. That's way off in the future, and a goal that just on barely touching the horizon at this point. But again, Balas, you're not discounting what Michigan did, and neither am I. The reality is the Wisconsin offense, maybe not so great, but what Michigan's offense did to that Wisconsin defense, that Wisconsin defense is really good. And for Michigan's offense to go up there and do what they did, and for the most part protect their quarterback and play the way they did, and Balas, no turnovers, 5 games in, no turnovers. They're living right, man. They're doing something right. So again, credit to the head coach, credit to the assistant coaches, and most importantly, credit for these players for the way they're performing so far. It's they got to keep it going. We got to keep it going, and there's a hell of a challenge coming Saturday night.
Yeah, 1 turnover, and that was Alan Bowman late in the game. You must have hit the golf course when it was like 38-10, because Alan Bowman got in there, threw a pick, and then Wisconsin scored.
All right, that doesn't count. That doesn't count. I don't care.
Count. You're damn right. They'd say differently, and so would you, because you're all part of the team, right? And
Yeah,
those guys are just as important. But point taken that when it mattered, they did not turn the ball over. It's been fantastic in that respect, and you can win a lot of football games. Ask Lloyd Carr if you protect the football. And I think it was James Carville who called it a gutless brand of football. But if you protect that ball and you win the turnover battle, Skene, you're going to win a lot of football games.
you're going to win a lot of football games, no doubt about it. And that's we can talk about McNamara, and there's one game, there's one play in the Wisconsin game where I think there was a quick 3 and out. Michigan got the ball back. It might have been off of one of their turnovers, and I thought, okay, they're going to take a shot here. And McNamara unloaded and threw it into double coverage. You can't do that. You're playing with fire there, so that can't happen. But for the most part, that kid protects the football. He doesn't put it in danger. He may not have demonstrated the most accuracy Saturday, but he protects the ball, and these backs, they hang on to it. So, those indicators are all really, really good. So, a lot of positive check marks here for this team so far, 5 weeks in, and we're gonna cautiously turn our optimism upward and start having some higher expectations of this team, and hope that they keep it going. It's again, for us former players, and I talked to a lot of the guys, and we had like a dozen of us on a text thread, and we all chattered back and forth as we watched this game. I tell you, all the guys, Kakuzo and Everett and John Woodlock and Doug Cohen and all these guys that I played ball with, we are all so happy for these guys that are having this success. We just got to keep it going.
Yep, and listening to that celebration scheme, that was a Michigan team, man. Like I said, it was fun to hear, fun to see them having fun. These guys are connected. They play for the uniform. They play. This hasn't been the case all the time in the last 5 years, but they play for the name on the front, the jersey, instead of the name on the back, their own, and it's fun to watch. Skene will break down some plays. We'll talk in the middle of the week about the upcoming game against Nebraska. Looking forward to it. Appreciate your insights.
All right, Balas, go blue.